그냥 바로 시작하면 되죠?
Can we start right away? I will start right away. I am Ryu Cheong-Ro, Chairman of Busan Fisheries Policy Forum. I'm going to be moderating the panel discussion. I'm not going to talk too much because we are behind time. But I will plan to be about 5 minutes later than the planned finishing time because we are behind time. So I'm going to ask the three presenters to wait a little bit, and I'm going to invite the 4 panel discussants to discuss their opinion. I'll give 5 minutes to each one of you. And then after that we will take the examples from the floor. Maybe we will invite about 2 or 3 people to express their opinions, and then we will give a little bit of time to the presenters, followed by follow-up message to the panel discussants. So I will skip introducing the presenters, but I'm going to introduce the panelists. We have Nam Soo-min, Director of Busan Fishing Village Specialized Support Center. We have Oh Mi-young, Manager of Suyong Cultural Center, who are working on the front directly with the residents of Suyong. We have Moon Hae-jin, Research Professor at Pukyong National University. And we have Peggy Bum, Head Office of Promotion and Design Council of Busan. So for convenience, I'm going to give 5 minutes from the panel discussants who is sitting the closest to me. Thank you. Starting from Ms. Nam Soo-min.
Hello everyone, as introduced, I am Nam Soo-min, the Director of Busan Fishing Village Specialized Support Center. Nice to meet every one of you. We just heard 3 presentations today. They were very insightful and they covered a lot of topics that we had interest. You can take off your mask. So the 3 presentations covered the topics that I usually had interested in, and we at the center have 50 projects to support the fishing villages, and I was really excited to see those stories presented by our speakers today. So the topic of today is fishing village identity, fishing village likeness, and I thought, what really is this fishing village likeness? And my conclusion was this. I'll keep it short. I would say that it used to be A in the past, but now it is B. So it's different from the past. So our 3 speakers today said that the fishing villages are changing, and the main cause is that there's lack of resources. The resource depletion is forcing the fishing villages are changing. And our fishing villages know this, and our center and the Minister of Fisheries know this really quite well. They feel it firsthand, and we try to tackle this problem. So what our center does is the following. We were established to address this problem. In the past, we had rich amount of fishery, maritime resources, so the fishing villages could just catch abundant amount of fishes and sell them. So they put a lot of effort into catching a lot of fish, but now they can't catch a lot of fish. So we need to change. We need to approach this problem from a different perspective. So the government said, then let's shift from catching a lot of fish to selling this fish at a higher price. Let's find a way to do so. That's how we're trying to support this approach. How can we sell this limited resources at a higher price? The way we approach this is by directly processing the resources and also attract tourists to the villages. But this is not easy because When we talk about fishing villages, the local people say that people living in those villages are becoming older. You can see from a lot of stats, compared to other agricultural villages, fishing villages are aging faster. When you meet these fishermen, you can hardly find people in their 60s. Most of them are in their 70s. We say 40s an age where you move over to become a senior. But in these villages, 70 is actually the biggest population, which means they can do whatever they want. It's an age where they can do whatever they want in those fishing villages. And yet we try to change these people. It's very daring attempt. We can't change these people because they've lived for a certain lifestyle for a very long time, but the environment's changing, the policy is changing, and the government expects these local people to heed to the changing policies. And we make a lot of requests and demands to this local population. Let's say, keep the public sea tanks clean, don't catch too much turtles, and we have all of these requirement items, and it's many of the times the fishermen cannot keep all of these rules and policies. It's because things are changing too fast. I mean, sometimes all these changes that we face today are too fast for us, and we expect these aging population to follow these changes. And in the process of inputting a lot of these financial resources to support these fishing villages, the results are not that visible. We can't really find those short-term results. So how can we maintain this fishing village likeness? The first is we need people. We need to maintain the local population. That's the first issue that we need to address. And in that sense, this session, the Maritime Humanities session, is meaningful. It's going to lay the groundwork for what we do at the moment. In our center, we try to run projects for the fishing villages, but moving forward, we're going to approach the individuals living in those communities so that we can come up with projects that the individuals can tolerate and accept. We need to make sure that local people can coexist, and we try to attract businesses in those local areas. But if those local businesses go away, that's not just -1 point, that's a huge amount of loss. So we need to maintain those businesses that we attracted to stay there so that they can further push forward with not just 4th industrialization, but 5th, 6th industrialization. And we also need to meet the demands of the general public to create the fishing village where everyone is satisfied. So we need to take an individual approach when we say we need to maintain the fishing village likeness. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you. The expertise of each of the panel discussions are very diverse, and their jobs are diverse. So the panel discussion is open to any of your idea. And Ms. Young, manager from Culture Center, very nice to meet you. I am Young, the manager of Young Culture Center. Thank you for your invitation, and I am taking a lot away from today's discussion. In Young districts, there are 2 fishing villages and 2 fishing fraternities. While working for the cultural center, I wasn't really paying too much attention to the fishing villages and the fraternities. And about 2016 and 2017, we had a project about discovering the contents from the fishing village. By engaging in this project, I had an opportunity to learn more about the history of Suyang district. And I was very surprised to learn these new things. At first, the approach was very simple. Many scholars have told us that not only agricultural villages, fishing villages are also on the road of extinction. And my expectation at the time was, because I'm not capable of stopping such decline of population, so what I could do is to collect the data on the history and culture of our hometown. That was the role of a culture center. But I came to reflect upon what we've been doing so far during this time of project. We have the fishermen and the Haenyeo, the female divers in our community, and I wasn't very knowledgeable about them. I was indifferent to them. While pursuing these projects, we got the assistance from the fraternities and the residents to complete, and that was left as a result of our cultural center. But I was feeling very heavy-hearted even after that, because we've always thought whether the cultural center can somehow contribute to addressing the issues of our community. However, we were not able to really pursue anything substantial, partly because of COVID. And this year we thought that we should no longer procrastinate on this. We thought about what approaches the culture center take, what can we do to help our community villages. And we thought that we should meet with the residents of our community as a starting point. So our cultural center, of course, we host the festivals and the events on Culture Day every month with the members of the cultural classes, and we visited the Minlak fraternity and to learn about the current situation of the village of Minlak, and we went to see the fish boats coming back to the dock and the catch they caught on that day, and how the fishermen come back from the fishing operation and repair their nets and so on. By engaging with them and having interactions with them, and we talked about what they thought and how their life is. There are actually many people in Suyang district who do not even know that there are 2 fish village fraternities in Suyang. By learning good examples and the good insights from today's discussion, researcher Mr. Park Sang-woo introduced the government New Deal, and I agree with the ideas of the New Deal. Actually, yesterday, the head of one of the fraternities and the cultural center came together to talk about what we could do to improve our communities, fishing villages and fishing communities' livelihood. At the moment, it is very hard to address these issues, but by getting the good advice and the help from the experts here, we will be able to use your expertise. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you. Next, we will continue with Professor Moon Hae-jin. I would like to first thank our 3 presenters. They shared very insightful presentations. I could relate to the story. Some of them were heartbreaking, especially the presentation made by reporter Choi Jin-seok made us see how it is difficult for the fishermen to actually speak up their current state. All of the media coverage and broadcasting is about the beautiful lifestyle of the fishing villages. That's how they're illustrated and portrayed. But the extension of fishing village, which was presented by all of the 3 speakers, allowed us to think again about the dangers that we face today. First, Professor Kim Yoon-mi talked about the whaling village's history, and she told us how the introduction of industrial complex forced these fishermen to move, and only the culture of whaling remains in those towns. So how could we address this extinction of fishing villages and their culture? And as for Director General Park Sang-woo, he told us why it was inevitable for the government to pursue with the New Deal project. The population is aging and the infrastructure is outdated in these fishing villages. To add vigor to these villages, the project was inevitable. And the population is still declining rapidly in those fishing villages. So this extinction rate is quite fast. And reporter Choi Jin-seok talked about Chudo and the issue of water scarcity. Obviously, we cannot survive without water. And we can see from his presentation that there's not much infrastructure in those fishing villages, and for bamboo fishing, their catch is declining every year. So this fish catching is no longer helpful in terms of making money and sustaining their livelihoods. So how can we support these fishing villages? How should we view the development of fishing villages? And all of these presenters talked about this topic. And what we're trying to do is to increase the accessibility of these fishing villages, increase the SOC projects for the improvement of infrastructure, and then shift the major industry from fishing to tourism. And I agree to his comment, Mr. Park Sang-ho's comments, that this can actually help the economy of these fishing villages. This could actually draw in more population to those local areas. But then, if we do so, how can we maintain this fishing village likeness? As Professor Kim Yun-mi talked about this farm town amenity, this is about the sceneries, farm town that is livable. So it needs to be an agricultural town that is a place where people want to live. It should be filled with these amenities, and at the same time, there should be this rural vibe. So the same goes for fishing villages. How can we create a fishing village filled with infrastructure and make it livable? But when it comes to whaling villages like Changsengpo, how can we keep their identity and their culture and their community culture? These are some things that we should address going forward. And Director General Park Sang-ho talked about the New Deal project. It comes to an end this year. So what do we do starting next year? The new project is about increasing the livelihood of fishing villages and creating more jobs. So that's the new project that the government is going to pursue. It's going to make these fishing villages more livable. However, what kind of policies do you have to keep this fishing village identity? How can you keep the fishing grounds, the traditions of fishermen, and how can you maintain the fishing village likeness of those fishing communities? I think these ideas should be considered when you create a policy. Thank you for that opportunity to present.
Very nice to meet you. I am Peggy Bum, the head of promotion, Design Council, Busan. I'm a little nervous because I have to go as the last person in the discussion. I work as an advisor for landscape and the public design as someone working in the design council. And some people will come to me and show the street lamps, several street lamps, and ask me to pick which one is the best. And I ask them, where do you put this lamp, and what do the other street lamps look like that will be next to them, and how big is the walk path, and in which angle does the shadow is the shadow created? And they will say, well, just pick the nice one. I start my discussion with the story because I want to say that we first need to have a accurate understanding of the problem with the location, any particular location, to be able to have the good solution to whatever problem we have. I was also the evaluator and the consultant to the Fish Village New Deal 300 project. What I felt by working, actually being confined in the building of the Ministry of Fisheries for 3 days as an evaluation, and I look at their focus, I look at their contents such as the sea walls, the marine sport recreation, the walk path and the parking lots. And I asked myself, well, how come there's nothing new? Do all the fish villages have the same problem? How come the solution to all the fish villages are exactly the same? What I'm trying to say is that we have to understand the problem exactly and accurately to be able to propose a solution to the problem. The start of a design is to understand the problem, and the problem can be categorized into 3. The first is the problem that anybody can express and anybody can notice. Let's say there's no water. It's so straightforward. I thought Trudeau was Africa by watching your film. It was so obvious what the problem is. Let's say we do not like the current situation because there's no waste bin, because the streets are too dirty. Those are the expressions of problems. And another problem is that the habits, they don't even know whether they have inconvenience because they've been living like this for several decades. They just believe that that's the way life is and that's what it's supposed to be. And number 3 problem is just living your life not knowing that something is a problem. Not knowing the problem itself could be a problem. So we have to look into these problems, and the first thing to do is that unless you really fix the problem, then you are never appreciated for whatever you do. But once you fix the problem, then the people you serve are so moved and so impressed, and they say they are happy, and they are so happy because you fixed the problem. Then how do you discover the problem? The residents should come together. They should be engaged to find the problems. How come the ministry just proposed the same set of solutions to all the fishing problems? Because maybe a handful of proposers, the planners will just bring about the solutions that they thought about and try to apply them to all fish villages. Have they really visited and discovered the problems of the fish villages? Maybe not. Reporter Mr. Choi Jin-seok today showed us he had enlightenment by the fishermen who got actually angry at us asking why the catch of the fish was not good enough as before, and I get the same enlightenment. Let's say you go to see a doctor and say I feel uncomfortable in my tummy, and he gives me just one pill, and does the pill just help? If the pill just help me, does it mean that I am healed? As Mr. Choi Jin-seok said, that we always see the beautiful side of the fish villages, and the Ministry of Fisheries will also come up with the good examples of showing how livable the fish villages are. So we will just see them and think that, oh, the fish villages are so beautiful, I want to live in one of them. So the question is, are those solutions good for any fish villages? They're not going to be the same, because if you generalize the solution, we may actually end up with bigger solutions, bigger problems. So if you want to really fix the problems, you have to precisely understand what you want to fix. Only then will you have effective solutions to problems, and only then will you have the fish villages that really have the identity as fish villages. Thank you very much for the insights. So today, we are talking about the fish villages, and we will have the freedom to propose the ideas about whatever the fish village identities. So anyone who would like to add from the floor, please raise your hands. I will invite about 2 to 3 people and give each one about 3 minutes. Yes, please.
안녕하십니까 부경대 양.
Hello everyone, I am Yang Mino from Pukyong National University. So this fishing village identity or fishing village likeness is a key word that I'm interested in as well. And I think this will be different depending on how you view it. People who actually live in the fishing villages and people who are outside of the villages would view this word from a different way. So what is it from an outsider's perspective and what is it from somebody who actually makes living out of fishing? So I do think we would have to take a two-tracked approach when we try to define this concept, and the extinction of fishing villages is in line with the extinction of rural, regional towns. So population, when we see it from economic terms, is actually money. And reporter Che said that the bamboo fishing is something that the fishermen do not want to pass on to their children. So how can we incentivize these people to pass down their traditions and their way of working? We would have to think about that. And in that sense, the perception of fishing village identity should be looked into because it's different for local people and outsiders. Thank you.
네, 좋은 의견이십니다.
Thank you for the good opinion.
반갑습니다.
Nice to meet you. I am Kong Mira from Pukyong National University. I'd like to thank the presenters and the panelists for the good ideas. I'm not an expert on this issue, but I wanted to share my simple ideas and suggestions. So Fish Village is the main theme of today, and our idea, the idea that we're trying to pull is how to improve the fish villages and stop them from going extinct. Then we need to think about how to maintain the fish villages and help them survive. First of all, the fishermen, the people of the fish village should love their job of fishing. That should be the first point, first step, for them to enjoy and love what they do. What policies should we implement and what benefits should fishing job give them? How can we help generate those benefits? Many presenters and panelists have already mentioned that the income is important, of course important. The fishing families should be able to obtain enough income, but at the same time, the kind of the skills as a master, can we help them maintain the spirit of traditional fishing activity? Mr. Park Sang-woo also mentioned the same idea. He said that starting from next year, well, the current project is not really resulting in good performance. Why is that? Because the government's policies naturally have some limitations. In Japan, they had migrant fish village. There was subsidized fish village and unsubsidized fish villages. In unsubsidized fish villages, they just keep on living there because they enjoy whatever they do. I guess it's the mindset and the joy that they have in the villages that help them to stay there in the villages without the subsidies that the governments give. So I wonder what we can do to help the fishing village families have the mindset, positive mindset to enjoy living in the fish villages. First, of course, they need to have sufficient or high income. And for them to want to pass their profession to their next generation, their children. For them to really want to do that, there should be some vibrant culture in the fish village so that the people of the fish villages do not want to leave the village for a better living environment. As I said, the Japanese government policies of subsidized and unsubsidized fish villages, after some time the government policies lose their effects. As Mr. Pukyung suggested, there are some communities that where the families, the residents came up with the cooperative council. So instead of the government's policy, they form their own councils, which is more sustainable. The council can bring together the voices of the residents, and for this kind of councils to be sustainable instead of being a one-off event, there should be some fundamental facilities. And the key to that is the policies that make the fishing village residents to love what they do. Thank you.
Thank you. I think due to time constraints, I don't think we can take any more comments from the floor. I need to keep the time. Does anyone else from the floor have any additional comments? Maybe some additional comments that they want to make?
말씀 잘 들었습니다.
Thank you for the ideas.
제가 생각하는 이 어떤 방식이
The fish village identity that I define
한 개념으로
is not really expressed in any one idea or any one phrase. Today, in 2022, of course there are fish villages that you can make ends meet with fishing alone, but there are other villages where it is impossible with fishing alone. So it is hard to have just one generalized definition of identity of fish villages. However, having said that, we should not lose the identity of fish villages. If we fail to maintain the fish village identity, we cannot maintain those villages anymore. We keep on saying the importance of community idea. The kind of problem of extinction is not just simply about there are no more people to live in there. It is bigger than that. It's actually a situation where the local community cannot sustain anymore. So it's not a conclusion that can be rushed to. There are about 2,700 communities, and actually there are more than 4,000 fishing villages in Korea. The kind of government policies to vitalizing the fish villages have their limitations at the end. So it is better for the local communities themselves to come together and bring about the solutions to their own problems. Thank you. Any other ideas from Mr. Choi?
So when I was preparing for this presentation, I kept thinking over and over what this fishing village identity was. So The scenes that you see on the news coverage is also what fishing village identity is, but I think that if we continue on to only report those positive notes, that's going to make it seem like the fishing villages only have positive sides. That's why I try to warn today to show that there are different sides, that there are negative sides. And in order for us to maintain those positive sides of those fishing villages, to make sure that they survive, we would have to engage in a more in-depth conversation with those local fishermen and local community, because at the moment only few number of people engage in those conversations, so many times their opinions are disregarded. In Gyeongnam KBS, we have a show called Playground, and there all the children who play in those playground give their ideas. They say, oh, we don't have a seesaw, we don't have any other things to play with in the playground. If we have a similar setup for the fishing villages where these local people can participate and give their opinions and say this is the way we should pursue to maintain this fishing village identity, would be meaningful.
혹시
Anybody else who can speak for 1 minute?
저기 어촌다
About the fish village identity, it should not be just about infrastructure building. It should also be about the community and the traditional identities. Mr. Chen mentioned the bamboo fishing. That is number 3. That is a fishing heritage, nationally important fishing heritage number 3, which is eco-friendly and traditional and sustainable kind of fishing activity. Pukyung or bamboo fishing is results in so small of a catch that the fisherman doesn't want to inherit it, doesn't want to pass it on to their children. If it is so unprofitable, then we need to think about not only building the infrastructure or the convenience, but about building the communities to sustain the culture and the tradition of their fishing activity. Because fishing village identity is different in each fishing village. Thank you. I'm sure Mr. Peggy Bum has a lot of opinions to share, but I think it is time to wrap it up. Today, we have participants from various expertise and various background, and thank you for your participation. Also, I'd like to thank the floor for participation. At this global forum called the World Ocean Forum, I think it is the first time for such a global scale forum to focus on the theme of Fish Village. In this small session on Fish Village, are being reproduced in many places in the world. We warn that the fish villages are on the road of extinction, and I believe that it is a paradox expressed by the people who will stop, who want to and who will actually stop the fish villages from going extinct, because they believe that the fish villages will continue as humankind continues to live on. Then we need to think about how we can make the fish villages survive in a sound manner. Although the scale and the numbers of the fish villages may decrease in the future, we will make sure that the fish villages will continue on in a better shape. What I would like to ask all of you is that I'm sorry that I wasn't able to give you enough time to talk about your good ideas, but I hope that every year we will have a forum like this. It doesn't have to be a big global forum, but sometimes we can invite people from other countries to learn more about this better idea. So we can invite the people and the storytellers of fish villages every year so that this forum can evolve into a more useful forum of discussion. So let's just agree that we will do so. We will meet every year and all the participants will participate in this forum every year, right? So thank